Rhea Kapoor never imagined that the person she trusted most, her husband Arjun Mehta, would betray her, but she certainly never expected her own mother, Maya Sharma, to be part of the shocking affair that would turn her perfect life into a nightmare of deceit, manipulation, and calculated revenge. Rhea Kapoor had always been proud of the life she had built. Married to Arjun Mehta, a successful Indian-American businessman. She lived in a spacious, sunlit house in a quiet Californian suburb. The neatly manicured lawn, the luxury cars parked in the driveway, and the expensive interiors of the house made her life appear perfect from the outside. Friends often envied the couple, admiring the way Arjun and Rhea seemed so in love, hosting lavish parties and traveling to exotic locations. Rhea herself often thought about how fortunate she was, how the universe had blessed her with a husband who seemed flawless and a family that appeared supportive. Yet, beneath the surface of her carefully constructed happiness, something felt off. A subtle unease had begun creeping into her thoughts. Arjun's charm, which once seemed endearing, now carried an undertone that Rhea could not ignore. There were nights when he would stay late at the office, claiming urgent meetings or client emergencies, but the truth was increasingly difficult to confirm. Sometimes, she would notice him distracted at the dinner table, his phone vibrating constantly in his pocket, messages quickly deleted whenever she walked past. Rhea tried to dismiss her suspicions, blaming stress and long work hours, convincing herself that she was imagining things. Still, the tiny details gnawed at her, the faint perfume she couldn't recognize on his clothes, the sudden secrecy in his demeanor, the nervous glances when she asked casual questions. Rhea's mother, Maya Sharma, had always been an influential presence in her life. Maya was beautiful, sophisticated, and intensely ambitious. She had a way of captivating everyone around her with her charm and wit, and Rhea had often felt both admiration and subtle unease at her mother's magnetic personality. Maya had moved to the United States years before, building a social circle that included influential people in business and society. Her visits, though infrequent, always brought excitement and energy to Rhea's life. Yet lately, Rhea noticed subtle changes in Maya's behavior during these visits. There was a certain intensity in her mother's gaze, a calculating tone in her compliments. In moments when Rhea sensed that her mother was observing her with an unreadable expression, despite these oddities, Rhea tried to focus on her own life. She had a demanding job and a few close friends who offered support and companionship. Still, even in her daily routines, the feeling of being watched, the sense that something was amiss, lingered persistently. Arjun's late-night calls and unexplained absences started to pile up, creating tension that Rhea found hard to ignore. The arguments that began as subtle disagreements over minor household matters soon escalated,
Not leaving?
an uncomfortable silence between them. Rhea wondered if she was overreacting, if her suspicions were merely products of her imagination, or worse, paranoia born from insecurity. It was during one ordinary evening, while going through some paperwork left on Arjun's desk, that Rhea first noticed something strange. A message notification had appeared on his tablet, but he had left it unattended. The brief glimpse of the content was enough to freeze her in place, a series of messages from a contact she did not recognize, with words that suggested intimacy rather than friendship. Rhea's heart raced as she tried to rationalize it. Could this really be happening? Her mind refused to settle, oscillating between denial and fear. That night, sleep eluded her entirely. The house that had always felt like a sanctuary now seemed heavy and oppressive, filled with shadows she could not explain. Over the following days, Rhea's observations became more acute. She noticed patterns in Arjun's behavior that were difficult to ignore. Calls answered in whispers, sudden departures, a careful editing of his digital footprint. These small details painted a picture she had never imagined. She started paying closer attention to Maya's visits, to her mother's comments that seemed harmless at first, but carried a subtle, almost imperceptible sharpness. Rhea felt trapped in a world where the people she trusted most were hiding secrets that threatened to shatter her entire life. Despite the growing tension, Rhea refused to confront Arjun without evidence. She became vigilant, recording details, noting inconsistencies, and slowly piecing together a puzzle she could barely comprehend. Each discovery brought a mix of fear, anger, and disbelief. The life she had taken pride in was no longer what it seemed. The perfect home, the luxurious lifestyle, loving husband, all were fragile facades hiding a betrayal that was waiting to be revealed. And deep inside, Rhea felt the first sparks of determination, a quiet strength beginning to emerge. She realized that the world she had trusted so completely might not only disappoint her, but also require her to fight in ways she had never imagined. The perfect life Rhea had believed in was starting to crack, revealing dark undercurrents beneath its polished surface. She understood that the coming days would change everything, that the serene suburban streets and sunny days outside were nothing more than a mask, hiding a storm that was about to strike her world in ways she could never have anticipated. Rhea Kapoor could no longer ignore the gnawing suspicion that had taken root in her heart. The unease she had felt in the back of her mind for weeks had now turned into a chilling certainty. Arjun Mehta was hiding something from her, and the signs pointed to something far more personal and devastating than she had ever imagined. She had always trusted her husband implicitly, believing that the bond they shared was unbreakable. Yet as she began to piece together the fragments of his secret life, that trust began to crumble like dry sand slipping through her fingers. It was an ordinary afternoon when the world she had known came crashing down. Rhea had been organizing some old files in the study when she stumbled upon a folder she had never noticed before. Inside were printed photographs, screenshots, and notes that revealed a shocking truth: Arjun was meeting someone in secret, and the nature of their relationship went beyond casual friendship. Rhea's hands trembled as she sifted through the evidence. The photos showed Arjun in a familiar figure from her own family, someone she had always thought of as trustworthy. Her heart pounded, disbelief and anger battling for dominance. She recognized her mother, Sharma, in the images, their secret meetings documented in painstaking detail. Shock rooted Rhea to the spot. Her mother, the woman who had raised her, the person she had turned to for guidance and support, was involved in an affair with her husband. The betrayal was so deep, so personal, that it felt like a physical blow. Memories of childhood dinners, family vacations, and casual conversations with Maya now carried a bitter aftertaste. As if every moment had been a carefully constructed deception, Rhea's mind raced, struggling to comprehend the enormity of the treachery. The people she had loved and trusted most were the architects of her heartbreak, weaving a web of lies around her while maintaining the illusion of normalcy. The days that followed were a blur of anxiety and paranoia. Rhea began observing both Arjun and Maya with a hawk-like intensity. She noticed subtle gestures, hidden glances, and whispered exchanges that had once seemed innocuous, but now screamed of secret liaisons. Every interaction between them, every casual remark, every shared smile, took on a sinister significance. The house that had once been her sanctuary now felt like a cage, suffocating her with its familiarity and the constant presence of deceit. Rhea's emotions oscillated wildly between rage, disbelief, and despair. She had to maintain a facade of normalcy, especially around friends and neighbors, who had no idea of the betrayal festering within the walls of her home. Each smile she forced, each polite conversation, was a mask hiding the storm inside. Yet beneath the surface, a plan began to form. She refused to allow herself to be a victim of such a profound treachery. The pain she felt was unbearable, but it also ignited a determination she had never known. If the people she trusted most could deceive her so completely, she would need to be meticulous in uncovering the full truth and ensuring that the betrayal did not go unpunished. Rhea reached out to Dev Malhotra, her closest friend and confidant, who had always been perceptive and careful in his judgments. Together, they began to compile evidence, creating timelines of secret meetings, tracking suspicious behavior, and documenting the extent of the deception. Dev's calm, analytical presence provided a measure of stability as Rhea navigated the chaos of her emotions. Each piece of evidence revealed a more calculated, manipulative side of her mother, who had used charm, subtle coercion, and cunning to maintain control over both Arjun and the narrative of their family life. The more Rhea uncovered, The clearer it became that the affair was not a fleeting mistake, but a deliberate act of betrayal. Maya had planned her moves carefully, choosing moments when Rhea was distracted, creating opportunities for secret rendezvous, and manipulating Arjun's emotions to keep him ensnared. The realization was devastating. Betrayal, Rhea understood, was never accidental. It was a choice, repeated and deliberate. And the depth of her mother's deception cut deeper than any outsider could ever imagine. In the quiet of her bedroom at night, Rhea allowed herself a rare moment of vulnerability. Tears flowed freely, grief and anger intertwining in a bitter mixture. Yet beneath the sorrow, a steely resolve began to form. She would not allow the betrayal to define her. She would confront the truth, expose the deceit, and ensure that the people who had shattered her life would face consequences beyond mere humiliation. The world she had known, the life of security, love, and trust, was gone, replaced by a landscape of treachery and calculated betrayal. Rhea knew that nothing would ever be the same, and that the path forward would demand courage, cunning, patience. The revelation of Arjun and Maya's affair marked a turning point in Rhea's life. The betrayal was not only personal, it was an awakening. It ignited a fire within her, a determination to reclaim control, to uncover every hidden detail, and to confront a reality that was far darker than she had ever imagined. What had started as unease had transformed into an undeniable truth. The people she had trusted most had turned against her. And now it was time for Rhea Kapoor to respond. Rhea Kapoor knew that confronting Arjun and Maya directly would be reckless. The betrayal ran deeper than she had ever imagined, and she could not afford to act impulsively. The images, messages, and hidden encounters she had uncovered painted a picture so calculated and deliberate that Rhea realized she needed careful planning to navigate the dangerous terrain her life had become. She could no longer rely on instinct alone. She needed facts, timelines, and undeniable evidence. Every action had to be precise, every observation deliberate. The house she had once called home had turned into a minefield of deception, and one wrong move could destroy whatever remained of her life. Dev Malhotra, her closest friend, had become her anchor during this turbulent time. Dev had always been methodical and perceptive, the kind of person who noticed patterns others overlooked. Rhea shared her discoveries with him, and together they began a meticulous investigation. They retraced Arjun and Maya's movements, comparing timestamps on messages, receipts from restaurants and hotels, and social media check-ins. Each piece of evidence seemed to confirm what Rhea had feared. The affair was ongoing, carefully hidden, and emotionally manipulative. The realization that her mother, someone who should have protected her, was orchestrating this betrayal left her reeling. As they dug deeper, Rhea and Dev began noticing patterns in Maya's visits. The timing of her arrivals, her seemingly casual questions, her subtle attempts to sow doubt in Rhea's mind, now made sense in a sinister context. Maya's charm, once endearing, had been a tool to manipulate both Rhea and Arjun. She had created opportunities for secret encounters while maintaining the appearance of concern and maternal care. The more Rhea understood, the more she recognized the level of calculation involved. This was not a fleeting mistake or a moment of weakness. It was a carefully executed manipulation designed to control her life. Rhea's investigation also revealed another disturbing layer. Arjun's behavior, which she had initially tried to rationalize as stress or work pressure, was consistent with someone being controlled and influenced. He had been drawn into the scheme subtly, his loyalty and affection redirected toward Maya while maintaining a facade of normalcy with Rhea. The discovery that her husband's charm had been a mask, concealing his complicity in the betrayal, intensified Rhea's sense of isolation and fury. She realized she was surrounded by people who had been complicit in eroding her life, and that the depth of the deception was far greater than she had ever imagined. Determined not to act recklessly, Rhea documented every detail. She recorded conversations discreetly, took photographs, and saved messages that clearly outlined the ongoing affair. Dev helped her organize everything, creating a chronological record of Arjun and Maya's secret activities. The process was exhausting, both mentally and emotionally. Each revelation brought waves of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief, yet it also strengthened Rhea's resolve. She could not allow herself to be overwhelmed by emotions alone. She needed to be strategic, to ensure that when the time came, the betrayal would be exposed in a way that left no room for denial. As they continued, Rhea noticed subtle signs that suggested Maya had underestimated her. There were careless remarks, moments when Maya revealed more than intended, and interactions that hinted at overconfidence in her control over the situation. These small cracks in the armor of deception became the foundation of Rhea's strategy. She realized that while Maya and Arjun had carefully orchestrated their betrayal, they had also left traces of recklessness that Rhea could exploit. Every photograph, every recorded call, and every overlooked detail became a weapon in her arsenal, a means to reclaim control of the life that had been stolen from her. Inspector Karan Desai, a seasoned detective who had earned a reputation for solving complex cases, became an unexpected ally. Rhea approached him cautiously, sharing her compiled evidence without revealing every detail of her plan. Desai recognized the gravity of the situation immediately. He saw patterns of manipulation, coercion, and calculated deceit, and he advised Rhea to proceed carefully. His professional insight validated her suspicions and provided reassurance that she was not. Imagining the intricacies of the betrayal, the days turned into weeks, as Rhea and Dev continued their painstaking investigation. Each discovery revealed deeper layers of manipulation, painting a portrait of a betrayal that was as sophisticated as it was brutal. Rhea understood that she was no longer merely uncovering the truth. She was building a foundation for the reckoning that would inevitably follow. Every detail mattered, every observation counted, and every carefully documented piece of evidence brought her closer to the moment when the facade of perfection surrounding Arjun and Maya would crumble entirely. By the end of this phase, Rhea was no longer the unsuspecting wife she had once been. She had transformed into a strategist, her heartbreak tempered by patience and precision. The betrayal had been devastating, but it had also awakened a clarity of purpose. Rhea Kapoor now knew that the path ahead required courage, calculation, and unwavering determination. The time for reckoning was approaching, and she would be ready. Rhea Kapoor had spent weeks meticulously collecting evidence, tracking movements, and documenting every interaction between Arjun and Maya. The pain of betrayal had hardened into a quiet, calculating resolve. She had no intention of confronting them blindly or letting emotion dictate her actions. This was no longer about heartbreak. It was about justice, exposure, and reclaiming the life that had been stolen from her. Every detail she had uncovered now became a tool in a larger plan, a strategy to ensure that Arjun and Maya, could not escape the consequences of their actions. The first step in Rhea's revenge was subtle but effective. She began planting seeds of doubt in Arjun's social and professional circles without revealing the full extent of the affair. Carefully crafted hints, strategically placed evidence, and deliberate omissions caused whispers to circulate about his loyalty and behavior. Arjun, who had once believed he was untouchable, began to sense that something was wrong. His charm and confidence, which had shielded him from suspicion, started to falter as the subtle cracks in his facade grew. He could not pinpoint the source of the unrest, but the tension in his professional and personal life became palpable. Rhea's strategy with Maya was more intricate. She exploited the very traits that had made her mother manipulative and overconfident. Maya's charm, her ability to control perceptions, and her desire to dominate every situation became her weakness. Rhea orchestrated situations that exposed inconsistencies in Maya's stories, creating scenarios where her mother's lies unraveled in front of family, friends, and acquaintances. Every carefully observed detail, every photo and recording Rhea had collected, was leveraged to create situations where Maya could not maintain her composure or control. The brilliance of the plan was that it did not rely on confrontation alone. It relied on the exposure of truth in a way that left no room for denial. Rhea's revenge was not impulsive. She knew that patience would amplify its effect. She allowed Arjun and Maya to continue their pattern of deception just long enough to collect the most damning evidence. Each meeting, each hidden message, Each subtle attempt to manipulate was recorded and catalogued. Rhea's meticulous attention to detail ensured that when the time came to reveal everything, the full scope of the betrayal would be undeniable. She understood that the emotional impact of seeing their calculated actions exposed publicly would be far more devastating than any immediate confrontation. As the plan progressed, Rhea involved Dev Malhotra only when necessary, keeping the circle small to prevent leaks. Dev became her silent accomplice, handling technical tasks, securing backups of evidence, and helping create the framework for the eventual exposure. His calm, analytical nature complemented Rhea's strategic brilliance, ensuring that every move was precise and effective. They created a timeline that highlighted not only the affair, but also the manipulative patterns Maya had established to control Arjun and influence Rhea's life. This methodical approach ensured that no detail could be contested or dismissed. The climax of Rhea's revenge came at a social event organized by Maya, who had invited close family and influential friends. Rhea had arranged for subtle revelations to occur throughout the evening. Evidence was strategically placed. Messages were accidentally revealed in front of key witnesses, and photographs were displayed innocuously in conversation. The reactions were immediate and devastating. Friends and family, shocked by the scope of the betrayal, began questioning both Arjun and Maya. Arjun's confidence crumbled under scrutiny, and Maya's composure shattered as the careful image she had maintained for years disintegrated before everyone's eyes. The public exposure of their actions ensured that the consequences would ripple far beyond Rhea's immediate circle by the end of the night. Rhea stood apart from the chaos she had orchestrated. The revenge was not fueled by rage alone. It was fueled by precision, patience, and the quiet satisfaction of justice served. Arjun and Maya were left to face the consequences of their deceit. Humiliated and stripped of the power they had wielded so confidently, Rhea's life, though scarred by betrayal, was no longer defined by the treachery of those she had once trusted. Instead, it was defined by her strength, intelligence, and unwavering resolve. As the dust settled, Rhea knew that the journey was far from over. The repercussions of the exposure would continue to unfold, and she would remain vigilant. But one truth was undeniable. She had reclaimed control over her life, turning a devastating betrayal into a story of strategic triumph. The revenge was complete, and Rhea Kapoor had emerged not just as a survivor, but as a force that no deception could ever undermine. The aftermath of Rhea Kapoor's meticulously planned exposure was both chaotic and transformative. In the days following the public revelation, the consequences of Arjun and Maya's betrayal rippled through their social circles and professional networks. Arjun's carefully curated image as a successful, charming businessman was shattered. Clients began distancing themselves. Colleagues whispered behind closed doors, and friends questioned his integrity. What had once been a life of ease and admiration became a constant struggle to justify and explain behavior that was now undeniable. The downfall that Rhea had orchestrated unfolded slowly but relentlessly. And with every passing day, her sense of justice strengthened. Maya Sharma faced an even harsher reckoning. Her reputation, built over decades on charm, influence, and strategic manipulation, crumbled before the eyes of friends and family alike. Invitations to social events stopped, business associates withdrew their support, and long-standing friendships dissolved as people distanced themselves from the scandal. The woman who had once seemed untouchable was now isolated, forced to confront the consequences of her deceit and the destruction she had sown in her daughter's life. Every subtle glance of envy or admiration she had once enjoyed was replaced with suspicion and condemnation. Rhea watched from a distance, not with gloating satisfaction, but with a quiet sense of vindication, knowing that the truth had finally taken its course. Rhea's own life, though scarred by betrayal, began to stabilize. She reclaimed her home, her routines, and her sense of autonomy. The luxury and comfort she had once taken for granted no longer defined her happiness. Instead, her focus shifted to rebuilding trust in herself and her decisions. Friends who had remained loyal provided support and encouragement, while Dev Malhotra, steadfast and reliable, continued to be a source of strength. Together, they helped Rhea navigate the emotional aftermath, ensuring that she did not succumb to despair or bitterness. The journey of recovery was slow, but each day brought a renewed sense of control and purpose. Inspector Karan Desai, the detective Rhea had consulted during the investigation, formally closed the case after reviewing the evidence she had meticulously gathered. Desai, impressed by the thoroughness of her documentation and the strategic approach she had taken, commended Rhea for her composure and intelligence. His acknowledgement served as a quiet reassurance that justice had been served, not only socially but legally and morally. Rhea realized that while the affair had caused immense personal pain, her careful planning had transformed a deeply humiliating betrayal into a narrative of empowerment and accountability. In the community, Rhea's story quickly became the subject of fascination. Neighbors, acquaintances, and even distant relatives were drawn to the dramatic unraveling of a family secret that had seemed untouchable. Social media buzzed with speculation, discussions, and debates about the depth of Arjun and Maya's deception. While the attention was intense, Rhea remained composed, choosing to let the consequences speak for themselves rather than seek additional drama. She understood that the true victory lay not in public recognition, but in the reclamation of her dignity, autonomy, and peace of mind. Though the emotional wounds were still fresh, Rhea found a sense of clarity she had never experienced before. Betrayal, she realized, was a teacher in disguise, revealing the strength, intelligence, and resilience that she had always possessed. She began to invest in herself in ways she had previously neglected, pursuing personal interests, strengthening friendships, and setting boundaries that ensured she would never again be manipulated or deceived so completely. Each small victory in her daily life reinforced her newfound independence and sense of self-worth. In the quiet moments, Rhea reflected on the journey she had endured. The pain of betrayal, the meticulous investigation, the calculated revenge had transformed her from a woman blindsided by deceit into one commanded her life with strategy and patience. Arjun and Maya were left to navigate the ruins of their choices. But Rhea Kapoor had emerged whole, resilient, and unshakable. She had not only survived one of the most personal betrayals imaginable, but had also turned it into a story of empowerment, a testament to the power of patience, intelligence, and unwavering resolve as life gradually returned to a semblance of normalcy. Rhea knew that the lessons of betrayal and revenge would remain with her forever. Yet, she also understood that she was no longer defined by the actions of those who had tried to undermine her. Her story became a cautionary tale of deceit, but also a narrative of triumph, illustrating how courage, meticulous planning, and inner strength can transform despair into power. Rhea Kapoor had reclaimed her life, and in doing so had proven that even the deepest wounds could be transformed into a force for justice, resilience, and enduring personal empowerment.